Hopefully nobody has a hangover from the white girl wasted game we had on Sunday afternoon at Jerry World. Cowboys win 40-37 over the New York Giants. That is John Owning of PFF. I am Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star Telegram. Appreciate you joining us here on the Cross Chop going into week 3 of the NFL season. But man, we have so much to discuss from yesterday's bizarre game. I've only been covering this team for 3 years now, but I can safely say that I now have 2 games on my list that are some of the craziest games I've ever seen in person. This one and then the Washington game from last year, but I don't know which one's crazier. John, before we break into all the nitty gritty and X's and O's of everything, just purely as a fan watching the game yesterday, what were your emotions back and forth?
Man, it was wacky. It was a wacky game. So the Giants were put together probably one of the most sloppy, undisciplined performances that I've seen from any team in any singular game. And I don't know how long with all the penalties and everything. The Cowboys were sloppy too, executing poorly, missing out on opportunities, creating too easy of opportunities, especially in the passing game for the Giants. So, but besides that, getting the victory in a division game is great. As much as we thought it was going to occur a bit easier than it did, the fact that they were able to pull out the W, given all the things that transpired, is a positive overall. But I'd be lying if I said that this made me more optimistic about the Cowboys' future this season, because it definitely didn't.
Yeah, that's something I want to dive into first is like, what are the overall vibes right now? Is it, hey, this is a nitty gritty win that maybe teams in the past don't pull off? Or is it, no, these issues are too complex, this is going to be a bad season?
It's too early to say whether it's going to be a good or a bad season, but it's definitely, weirdly enough, I'm a little bit more pessimistic coming off the win than I was optimistic coming off the loss of last week. So it's kind of like evened out. Obviously, division games are weird, so I think the next few weeks are gonna tell us a lot about where this team stands in the NFC and the NFL as a whole. So that'll be important, but yeah, still a little bit too early for me to glean too much, especially because they were both in division games. And like I said, as we've seen in the past, you can kind of the division games, just weird, wonky stuff happens constantly.
Yeah. Let's dive into our first topic here. We're going to talk about this offense first. In that second half, 388 total yards, 30 points. I remember being at halftime and just kind of looking around and being like, man, this offense is bad. They went a stretch between last week and week 1 into the beginning parts of here in week 2, where they went 72 minutes and 42 seconds without scoring a touchdown. They finally break into the end zone late in the second half, and then it was just kind of a barrage from there on out. I think what clicked, at least from my perspective, is Dak got ballsier. And Dak has been ballsy to start these first couple of weeks, but you saw him really forcing in those tight window throws to Jake Ferguson, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb. Lamb really started to pick up his production. But I think if you look at the core facet of where this success began offensively, you have to point at Javonte Williams. And this is a guy that I think a lot of people rightfully had concerns about going into the season about, can he be a starting caliber running back? I think he quieted a lot of those concerns yesterday, over 100 total yards, had a couple of very big runs for this team, and helped set them up for some big scores, had a big score of his own. His longest run since his rookie year, John, 30 yards on that touchdown run that he had in the what was that, early in the second half, late in the first half? But regardless, it was great to see the running game production. Even when the offensive line played bad, the skill players were still able to step up.
Yeah, and it was good to see. I was especially happy to see that the George Pickens, Dak Prescott connection really seemed to get going there in the second half. And really in some key portions of the game, he was able to find and take advantage of George Pickens against the Giants' kind of subpar secondary. So that was great to see. And obviously Javonte Williams, he has just surpassed all of my expectations coming into the season, just how hard he runs, his vision. This guy does not miss running lanes. He does not, on zone runs, he's always making the right cuts. On gap runs, he's hitting the intended hole very well. And he does a really good job of setting up those holes with his patience and his pace of his runs. He presses the line of scrimmage well. He does a lot of those little things so well that kind of make up for the fact that he's not that great of an athlete. He's not that fast. He's not that quick at this portion of his career after the knee injury, but he just makes up for it with the toughness, the tempo, the pace of his running. He does all the little details correctly, getting his pads square versus contact, turning his legs, all of those little details that matter so much about playing running back well. He's just doing at an exceptionally high level right now. I've been so impressed. The Cowboys just need to really find a lightning to his thunder. If they can find someone who can be a big play threat, like hopefully Jaden Blue can become that.
If only they had that on the roster.
Yeah, if they can get him on the field, or if he can get more accustomed to the playbook or earn the coach's trust, whatever have you be. That would, I think, really take the backfield production to a really whole nother level, whether it be against the run, whether it be in the passing game or in the run game. So I'm just really excited about the potential that the Cowboys could have in that backfield with a Javonte Williams and maybe a Jaden Blue.
Yeah, third down and fourth down in the second half. That was what I was really encouraged about, I think. And, there were so many times, I think, in recent years where the core issues of the offense not being able to capitalize late in games was that they put themselves in third and longs, third and eights, third and nines, third and behind the chains. They did it last week against the Eagles when they were trying to, put that 2-minute drive together, and they couldn't do it. Throughout the second half, they couldn't do it. You saw them in those third and longs and then not setting up beautifully for fourth downs either. I feel like they got ahead of the sticks on early downs enough in the second half finally to where they were able to set themselves up on third and fourth a little bit easier moving forward into that second half. Now, I think there's some issues that they kind of drew back to during the overtime period, and penalties. Oh my God, penalties did not help. It's somehow in a game where you had 12 penalties for 106 yards. You were not the most penalized team, but still, it was really bad. It hurt. Guyton having a couple of penalties. Booker, I believe, had one in there as well. Let's talk about this offensive line, man, because I feel like you can really only point at one bright spot. It's in Tyler Smith. I feel like Cooper Beebe had his moments, but overall, we knew it was going to be a tough defensive front that this team was going to go up against. But my goodness, if they clearly won that battle. If we're talking about the battle in the trenches, Giants won that handily.
Yeah, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, even some of the backup reserve defensive tackles had some really good performances against the Cowboys. They were just really overwhelmed throughout. I'm really, 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 even though Tyler Guyton wasn't great, I still see positive things from him. Terrence Steele, man, he's just a second straight week that he really, really struggles. And it just looks like he's not, I don't want to write people off, but it just seems like he's not going to get back to that level that he was playing prior to the injury. We held out hope last year because of the way the offensive line coaches were teaching their offensive linemen with their strikes, that it didn't really play into Terrence Steele's strengths. But this year you see him playing a style more akin to what he was playing at his best, and he's still not doing well. And I think the thing that hurts him I think that the most worrisome thing is how bad his anchor has been. He's just been getting driven back constantly into Dak Prescott's face. He has not been able to anchor. He hasn't been able to drop his hips, drop his weight against that power to really stymie those bull rushes, those power rushes. And that's really, really, really made it difficult for him to have any success, because for him he has to brace so much to anchor that when edge defenders threaten power and then transition to speed, he just has nothing for them. Brian Burns got more than a couple of occasions. And this just makes me wonder, when is Nate Thomas going to slide in first for a Terrence Steele here soon? I think that's something that we're going to see in the next couple of weeks, because Terrence Steele has been a giant weak link for the Cowboys up front. He did some really good things as a run blocker in week 1. This week, he had a lot of trouble as a run blocker. He was missing assignments. He wasn't creating the push that he could do. He was getting beat. He was getting his block shed. It was a struggle. And obviously he was going against really good competition with the Giants, who arguably have the most talented front four since they play at 3-4, front 5, in the entire NFL. So obviously it's not going to look too great, but it was such a subpar performance that you struggle to wonder if he's even starting caliber anymore, and he wouldn't be better coming off the bench. And I honestly would want to see what Nate Thomas can do, because I would be surprised if he could be any worse.
So you would think it could happen in the next couple of weeks?
I mean, that's just how bad Steele has been. And last week we heard a really steady drumbeat that Nate Thomas was pushing these guys. And I would think it has to come in the next couple of weeks. If not, then when are you going to do it? You know, how much worse does he have to play for him to get benched, in my opinion?
Yeah. Johnny Cornelius has been another guy that has gotten a lot of reps at right tackle, but Nate Thomas is comfortably their swing guy. If there were injury to left tackle or right tackle, he'd be the first one to slide in. And, you know, they talked about his power. They love his power. They love his length. Those are certainly things you can maximize at that right tackle spot. But
see, that's the problem too with his length, though. He uses his length, but then he leans so much that as soon as it gets knocked down, he has no ability to recover.
Yeah,
and get in position to make the block. So he's just
about Thomas or Steele.
He doesn't Steele.
Okay.
He doesn't trust his length enough to be able to, you know, stay with good posture and just throw his hands out like a jab. He's like leaning with the punch. So when he gets knocked down, his weight comes forward, his balance is off, he can't recover, and he gets beat bad. So it's just so many technical inefficiencies, so many mental lapses. It's just it's tough to say anything positive about his performance.
I think at the very least, even if you had a little bit of a drop-off from Terrence Steele to Nate Thomas, even if it was just a little bit of a drop-off, you at least don't have the blueprint on several tapes and several films on how to beat Terrence Steele, because that's what teams have now. They know how to beat Terrence Steele, especially divisional opponents. See how he has played against divisional opponents over the course of the last couple of years. I'm sure that's a fascinating stat, because you think about the Eagles having double-digit pressures against him back in 23. You think about the Giants just continuing to generate push on him every time that they play. The Commanders last year had in that game in Washington, we're getting all over him. Frankie Louvu was getting around him for multiple pressures, and that's a guy that, you know, I really like Frankie Louvu, and I think he can get into the backfield with some of the best off-ball linebackers in the league, but there's no reason why his power and his length shouldn't be able to take care of a guy like that, and it didn't happen over the course of that game. So that's where I would also like to see Nate Thomas. I'm not sure how much better it would be, but at least you don't have the blueprint on how to beat this guy over and over and over again. I will say, though, is there any positivity you can draw from Steele in the run game, though? Because I do still feel like that strength is there. It's not as strong as it was early in his career.
You got to look at week 1, I think, to see the positives. He didn't really do much in the run game this week. That's okay. I think he did much worse in the run game this weekend. He had way more poor plays than he had positive plays in the run game. It was a really big step backwards, in my opinion, in that department.
Yeah, let's dive into another big issue that has really. I think this is the key point. If you had to talk to any Cowboys fan right now, this is the biggest point of concern moving forward. Oh my God, this secondary got destroyed. This looked like a 2010, 2011 Cowboys secondary just getting diced up. Russell Wilson looking like the guy he was when he was winning Super Bowls, or at least making Super Bowls with the Seattle Seahawks, those deep balls. I mean, it got to a point in that second half where he was just throwing it up there to see who would come down with it. And more often than not, somebody was coming down with it. When you have a guy named Wan'Dale Robinson that's killing you down the teams, you know there's a problem. And what's crazy about it is they did not have Deron Bland. And so they slide in Reddy Stewart. We talked about that last week. Reddy Stewart was the best player in the secondary yesterday.
By far. He was great.
He was great. He was awesome. And I wonder, and this is probably a point that we'll bring up later in this topic, can Reddy Stewart play well enough to where he keeps his job and Bland replaces Kyrie Elam?
Yeah, I totally think so. I got kind of a 3 or 4 things I want to mention with this secondary. So make sure you keep me on task here. Make sure you keep me on task. I think one big issue is that Eberflus, he plays really, really unsophisticated coverages post snap, but the Cowboys do a ton of rotations where they show something pre-snap and rotate to a different kind of coverage post snap. He does a lot of wild things. Like we saw things where Diggs was lining up as the outside corner, and then he funnels to be the deep pole player in Tampa 2. We saw places where Hooker is showing like he's going to be the single high defender with Wilson in the box, and then post-snap they switch. And I think when you have that much post-snap movement with a team that is so early in its tenure with a new defensive coordinator, it's going to lead to miscommunications and coverage busts. And that's what we saw a ton of against New York Giants. I can think about the Malik Hooker, or not the big throw down the field that Malik Hooker gave up to. It was a cover 3. Malik Hooker and Reddy Stewart both relate to the flats, but Hooker was supposed to stay on top of the slot vertical route. There we go. Sorry, from the number 2 receiver, but he didn't relate related to the flats. And also on that play, Donovan Wilson took the cheese, got blinders, staring at the number 3 receiver, not seeing the number 2 get vertical, so he didn't get enough depth in his drop, and that didn't allow him to relate to that receiver for the touchdown. That was not Diggs's fault. Diggs actually did a pretty good job on that, of staying deep, relating properly to what he was supposed to do. Another one, Kyer Elam. The whole defense was playing cover 3. But then Kyer Elam was for some reason rerouting and playing like he was playing cover 2, and that allowed the receiver to get, I think it was Wandale Robinson on that one, get deep down the sideline for that big reception in the fourth quarter. So those were just a couple big miscommunications and coverage busts that were really hurt the Cowboys defense. And I think Elam was probably one of the biggest perpetrators of those issues, were the coverage busts. And then another factor, I think, is that Trevon Diggs is lacking that kind of that 5th gear, that extra gear to recover when he's out of phase. Throughout his entire career, Trevon Diggs has been a out of phase cover corner, to kind of trying to influence quarterbacks to target him so that he can kind of use that acceleration, get into the contest area, and then that's where he gets so much ball production, whether it be picks or pass deflections. But it seems like coming back from his injury, he doesn't have that 5th gear to really recover. So when he's out of phase, he's not able to make up that space, and that's why the Giants were able to take advantage, especially on that long throw to Malik Neighbors. I think that was the biggest example of it, but it happened a couple more times when Diggs was beat throughout this game. He just doesn't have that recovery speed quite yet, and that's made it difficult for him in his usual play style to make those type of plays. So I think that those things were really harmful, and really were the biggest reasons why Dallas's coverage had such big issues. Like you said, I was extremely impressed by Reddy Stewart in the slot. Not only was he doing a good job in zones, playing with awareness, relating to the receivers, but when they did match concepts, he was staying tight. He had the tightest coverage both at into the break point and out of the break point. So he was really condensing those throwing lanes exceptionally well. I think there was the Kenny Clark sack that Reddy Stewart did a fantastic job in his zone drop, quickly matching to the receiver, and it took away Russell Wilson's first read. And then Kenneth Murray did a really good job taking away Russell Wilson's second read, and that gave Kenny Clark the time that he needed to get to the quarterback and get a sack. So I was really impressed by Reddy Stewart. I definitely think, based on the performances last week, if they were on Bland, it was able to come back against the Bears, you put him outside, allow Reddy Stewart to still stay in the slot. And I think that's your best 3. Now, I don't think that Bland, you probably know better than me. I don't know if Bland's going to be ready for next week. Probably not. So you'll probably get another week of Elam outside, Reddy Stewart in the slot. But if Reddy Stewart has another performance like he had last week, I don't think there's any way you should take him off the slot. Just insert Bland into that outside cornerback position and let's rock.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that at least I saw without going back and seeing the All-22 just yet, that's typically my Tuesday morning a dive. The communication piece, you see it. You can tell when these guys are not communicating well, because on all these deep balls, the first thing that all these guys do is
they're looking around.
You're like, you, me, you, and no one understands where they're supposed to be. That leads me to believe that this is a huge scheme issue that they are facing right now. And, had they been done any favors over the course of the last 3 years? Probably not. You talk about Dan Quinn, ran more man coverage with this defense than any team in the NFL. Last year with Mike Zimmer, it was somewhere around the middle. It was like,
and he has some of the most complicated coverage concepts married with blitzes in the entire NFL, especially on third downs. Almost the complete opposite of what Eberflus does.
Yeah, and then you see this Eberflus scheme where they are running not only more zone coverage than anybody in the NFL right now, by a mile. I think they could run out
man coverage, the most basic form, spot drop. The lion's share of the snaps are the most simple spot drop coverages. He's not even running a ton of match. Now, there was a little bit more match this week than there was last week, which I thought was a good thing, which we saw in their ability to eliminate some of the short to intermediate throws that Russell Wilson had, especially in the second half in kind of high leverage situations. But it's just, like I said, I think it's so much of the disguising that he's trying to do with the back end, where he's doing such different pictures pre and post snap to try to confuse quarterbacks. Since he's not running really complicated coverages, he's trying to use complicated disguises to make up for that. And that's just leading to too many miscommunications on the back end. I would rather run more complicated coverage concepts on post snap without the crazy disguises where you have guys lining up at outside cornerback, running to the deep middle, guys in the deep middle hauling ass to get to the outside, or switching responsibilities. You know, the deep safety coming up to the box safety running him back, guy at the line of scrimmage running out to the flats. Those type of things create miscommunications and voids in zones. And I think Eberflus is just kind of complicating his defense in the wrong facet. Like I said, I would rather have more complicated regular coverage concepts than the super complicated disguises that are leading to these miscommunications.
Let's dive into the film, John. And I love where we're going to be able to start with this, because we're going to start with Solomon Thomas. And I want to talk about the defensive interior first. Overall, if you look at how Solomon Thomas, Kenny Clark, Osa Digizua, even Jay Toya had a couple of moments. He also had a couple of bad moments. If you look at how they played, man, they kept this defense from snapping in half. And if Russell Wilson was able to implement a run game and a play action game throughout the course of this one, the Giants win this game. And the defensive interior kept this defense from snapping in half, especially in the first half too. But let's start with this Solomon Thomas play.
100%. I thought Solomon Thomas was just a menace against the run the entire game in his snap allotment. He was doing a fantastic job of resetting the line of scrimmage, playing with a fast get off, able to take on combination blocks really well. Here you see him get combo, but then he does a good job getting square, and then what's the word I'm looking for? Like reducing the space in between the adjacent gaps that he's doing by squeezing down on the line of scrimmage to help make the play here. Really good job. And you'll see multiple examples in the thread of him making plays versus the run, whether it's stacking and shedding blocks, resetting the line of scrimmage, pursuing the ball really well, really fast. He just had a fantastic, well-rounded performance against the run. Here's another example.
Yeah, this was what caught my eye on Reddy Stewart live during the game too. He flew in to make this play in the B gap, and I don't think he ended up getting credited with the tackle, which is bullshit in my eyes. But he was the reason that this got stopped at the line.
This was a really sneaky. I kind of like this call from Eberflus. It was a really interesting way to mess with the run blocking that the Giants have up front. Now, when the upfront offensive line is making their calls, their Mike linebacker calls, which dictates who everyone's going to block, they don't account for the slot defender in that count.
Yeah.
But what the Cowboys did here, if you notice, they slanted both their defensive tackles to the right. So they're lined up in their original gap, and then they both post snap slide one gap to the right. And it's usually in those situations, you have a linebacker fit off of that and pick up the gap that they were originally lined up in. But here, as you see, Eberflus sent Reddy Stewart to fly into that B gap. And since the Giants didn't have anybody accounting for him and the receiver had a terrible angle to make that block, it allowed Stewart to have that free run into the backfield to help make the stop.
Yeah, that basically puts the right guard in a position where he either has to take Stewart or take Sanborn.
And he can't do Stewart because that's not who he's looking for. He's not a part of the blocking assignment. He's totally on Jack Sanborn. That's just a really, really smart call by Eberflus in that situation. And you see they kind of went to it a couple of times throughout that game.
Here's some Kenny Clark love. I love me some Kenny Clark, man. 2 weeks in, I'm sold.
Another example of them slanting the line, and that did a really good job because it allowed Kenny Clark to make first contact with that tackle and to be able to press, separate, shed, and make the play. It seemed like I get on Eberflus a lot for the calls he made, but the slants in the kind of line games that he was running up front in the run game were having a lot of success. A lot of times in the past, we've seen the Cowboys run stunts, and it kind of puts them in a bad position to defend runs. But Eberflus it seemed like he had a really good beat on what the Giants' running game was going to be because he called the slants and stunts correctly throughout the entire game.
Yeah, this is
another example. Kenny Clark resetting the line of scrimmage with strength, length, shedding blocks, making plays. It was nice to see. The most hated man on the Cross Chop podcast was able to make a few plays. He had some bad plays too, but
he played better. He played better.
Highlight the fact that he actually made some plays. He was getting off his spot quicker. When Kenneth Murray has the biggest issues is when he turns into a statue at the second level. He's not moving too much. He's trying to read, and he kind of gets like frozen by trying to think too much, over analyzing. Here, he gets off his spot really well, gets to the outside, and is able to make the play. Really, really, really good play right here, especially because he's able to evade the block.
In the third quarter, he had back-to-back plays and pass coverage that I thought were really impressive. And I
led the team in coverage stops.
Yeah.
Another good example, Solly Thomas being way too much man for this guard, resetting the line of scrimmage, getting him on his heels, using his length, separation, shed, make the play again. Just a really, really strong performance. Exceeded my expectations for Solomon Thomas, especially because he's not someone who's been a really good run defender throughout his career, but this was a really strong performance for him.
And if you think of all the free agents that they signed over the offseason, a lot of one-year deals, they got him on a 2-year deal.
And also, watch Kenneth Murray here. Notice how he's able to flow to the ball without being encumbered by a blocker.
Yep.
That's because the guys up front are doing their job.
Yep. It makes life a lot easier. It makes me think about how well Eric Kendricks would have played in this scheme.
Oh, yeah. You said that last week, and I was just like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been nice.
There was a 4-play stretch right after Dak threw that interception to open the third quarter. There was a 4-play stretch where Solomon Thomas whooped ass. And I encourage everybody to go back and watch Solomon Thomas on that drive because it was really impressive. Here's some Jay Toya love.
Yep, and here's another example of a defensive tackle doing his job. It wasn't the most pretty. His pad level's too high. As you could see, he gets driven to the ground at the end of even though he gets tripped a little bit. But it's just another example. He holds the double team long enough that Dono is able to insert into the run game without any blockers and just to make the tackle. Really, really well done. That's exactly what you want to see from your big 300-plus defensive tackle. Now, this is some sneaky vet stuff from Kenny Clark. When you're taking on a double team, you used a little bit of the sneaky hold there on number 76, on that guard, so he can't climb to the second level, and Sanborn's able to just sit there in the hole and make the play. That's one of those plays where it could get called, and you could be screaming at Clark for playing so sloppy. But when they don't call it, baby, hey, that move, little sneaky move.
That is a bad move.
That's like when you play old man in one-on-one. He's like pulling down your shorts a little bit as you're trying to back him down, doing those dirty moves. That's what I like to see from my defensive tackles.
All right, some secondary shit, man. Let's get into it.
This is that play that I was talking about where Malik Hooker was supposed to stay on top. Watch him and Stewart relate to the flat together. It's just not how it's supposed to be. He's got to stay on top of that number 2's vertical. He has that because once he relates to the flat, he sees Reddy Stewart there, then he tries to run up with the other vertical. And it's just like, that is 100% what you're not supposed to do in that situation.
Is there a little bit of blame, though, that can be put on Trayvon for not getting deeper quicker? Because, yes, Hooker was not in his spot, but I feel like
Wilson's supposed to be deep there. Because as you see that the vertical from the number 3 turns into a stop route, and he has blinders on that guy. He needs to keep getting depth. You need to be deeper than the deepest. And he just has such blinders on that number 3. He doesn't see the number 2 getting vertical. Diggs has to play what's called a midpoint technique with the 2 verticals. He has the number 2's vertical and the number 3 vertical. If he tries to stay so much on top of that number 2, then the number 3 vertical is going to be wide open. So he kind of has to play them both. And that's why Wilson has to do a better job staying on top of it all so that the voids between them are condensed. Obviously, I would say on that play, it's probably 65% Hooker's fault, 35% Dono's fault.
Gotcha. Let's see some James Houston love. Man.
Oh yeah, I love this rush. I love a good throw by. I love a good long arm throw by. You see him extend with that long arm, run him upfield for 1, 2, 3 steps, and that gets the momentum moving upfield. So then you just throw on the brakes, throw him upfield, rip under, get the sack.
How about the duck on the chip too? He had Theo Johnson whiffing there.
That was awesome. Just get my man more snaps. Even with Clowney back, I think to me the best way to go about it is definitely reduce Sam Williams' snaps by almost half. Reduce Dante Fowler's snaps a little bit. I still like him in passing situations, but you got to get my man James Houston on the field more often. Get Jadeveon Clowney. They say he's going to play around 20, 25 snaps per game. Take that from Sam Williams. Give James Houston a little bit more of Dante Fowler's snap allotment. Sorry, I can't talk today.
Snot allotment.
Yeah, snot allotment. But yeah, that would be great. And then
this was the first big throw of the game in the first quarter.
And as you see here, this was Kenneth Murray, probably his worst play in coverage. Again, he gets blinders on. When you're the pole runner, you have to be mindful of all of the potential targets down the deep middle of the field. And he gets just so big blinders on the number 3's vertical that he doesn't see the number 2 wrapping behind him. Now, I will say that's a really good concept from the Giants, because that's something I think a lot of Mike linebackers will fall into, that they just get blinders on that number 3 and they don't see the number 2 getting vertical behind them. But he has to either stay on top of or stay in the hip pocket of that number 2 vertical, and just do a better job and trust his teammates that they're going to take the shorter stuff from him.
This was the second of the back-to-back really good pass coverage plays that I saw Kenneth Murray have on this stretch, and him sniffing out the screen. If you want to dive into this one, John.
Yeah, just a really good job of identifying the screen, getting off his spot, and taking a good angle to avoid the block and make the tackle. Just a really strong play all around. Very impressive.
All right. Diggs is not back to 100%. It's very clear. Talk about why you see that here.
Yeah, and you see here, you can tell that he plays that out-of-phase game on purpose. You can see the way he opens up and he runs, gets that kind of like side shuttle run downfield, but he just doesn't have that extra gear to really make up that space at the end. He's able to get in, almost make a play on the ball, but Diggs fully healthy last year before, he would have been right in position to defend that play. Now, Neighbors is awesome, so maybe he still makes the catch, but Diggs would have definitely been in a better position to do a better contest rather than just trying to punch the ball out as Neighbors tries to bring it into his chest. That's
a hell of a catch, too. Just that Malik Neighbors is going to be a thorn in their side for a long time.
100%. Now, this is just an example what I was talking about of Reddy Stewart and Kenneth Murray relating to the first couple options for Russell Wilson from zone. They do a really good job of squeezing those routes so Wilson can't get rid of the ball, and that allows Kenny Clark the time to get to the sack.
Kenny Clark, once again. Let's dive into another Kenny Clark play. Why not?
Yeah, this is the same one, just showing how he got to the sack. He did it. I think he does a really good job here. Now, let me look up something. What is Kenny Clark's arm length?
That's a fantastic point.
Arm length. 32 1/8 inches. You followed the draft, Nick.
Yeah.
That's really short arms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everybody would say that's short arms. How does he outreach this guard with such short arms? It's because he uses the long arm. One arm is longer than 2. This is why the talk about length and it being like the end-all be-all frustrates me so much. If it was such a big deal, then someone with T-Rex arms like Kenny Clark wouldn't be able to outreach the offensive guard in this situation, which he does because he knows how to use his length. That is the most important, not what your overall length is, but how do you use it? And he uses it perfectly here, uses that long arm so the guard can't latch, and that allows Clark to kind of slowly power through that outside shoulder and get in position for another sack.
Kyer Elam, busted coverage down the right side. And
this is the one I was talking to. They're playing cover 3, and he plays it kind of like he's playing cover 2. He kind of tries to reroute, but then he doesn't relate to it downfield. He just stays underneath like they're playing the hole in, cover 2. It's just, and if you look at Diggs on the other side of the field, how he's staying capped on that receiver's vertical, that kind of gives you the tell, like, what is this guy doing? It's a total miscommunication, total coverage bust by Kyer Elam.
So you're saying on this coverage, it's supposed to mirror what Diggs is doing on the other side.
Exactly. He's supposed to stay high. And I don't know if they was one of those things where they have 2 calls in the huddle and then they call it out, based on the looks, or what have you be, but that is just 100% not what the coverage technique should have been given what everyone else on the field was doing.
All right. Jack Sanborn being identified here.
This is bad. He takes the cheese here. Stewart is in position to relate to that to the running back in the flat, and he jumps over there. I think he just is trying to run to the ball because he thinks they're going to get the ball out quickly because he knows the Cowboys are bringing a blitz. But you just have to trust your teammates that they're going to be there in position to carry out their duty, because you getting put out of position gave the Giants an easy pitch and catch for the first down.
Yeah, that's just great eye cheese from Russell Wilson to be able to sell the toss. That was a play where the Cowboys were able to use it yesterday, but Jack Sanborn not the benefactor there. Now let's dive into some offense stuff. Javonte Williams, man, this was such a beautiful run, and it was so great to see it be paved through the interior of the offensive line in my eyes. Even though he did bounce out, you saw everybody in that interior handling their guy.
Look at the patience. Look at how he changes tempo. Watch. The key is there when he presses that line of scrimmage before expanding out. Look what that does to the second level linebackers. It causes them to over pursue to the play side, which opens up his ability to cut upfield. And then that's why he had so much space when he got vertical.
Yeah,
just watch what he does to the linebackers. It's just a beautiful job of using the press and cut principles to manipulate those second level defenders and kind of create his own opening. The blocking on this play wasn't that great, to be honest. It wasn't fantastic. It was good enough that they didn't allow any free runners or what have you. But a lot of this is just Javonte doing it himself, manipulating those second level defenders to create those running lanes.
But even Tyler Smith there, I mean, to get around and make that play, that's big time. It was almost – Giants were almost bailed out by a bad block from Jalen Tolbert and poor effort from Tyler Guyton. But Tyler Smith, I feel like, is the highlight here, other than Javonte, of course.
Yeah, 100% agree.
You see Guyton right here.
One back power, baby.
Look at that poor effort from Guyton. It almost ends up in a tackle on the backside. Actually, let's go back. Let's go back and watch this one more time. You can see Guyton look back like, "Oh shit, I almost allowed that." Like, you see him, and then he looks back, and he's like, "Oh shit." Some Brevin Spanford love, who I just continue to love week after week.
Yes, guys. I mean, the fact that Luke Schoonmaker is giving you nothing as a receiver and almost giving you nothing as a blocker, I don't understand how he can play more snaps than Brevin Spanford, who has been the best blocking tight end on the Cowboys roster for 2 straight weeks now.
Yeah.
I just think he needs more snaps. I mean, he just completely overwhelms the linebacker on that play. Fantastic block, and it makes Sanders's little run to the end zone real easy.
This was the Elijah Garcia play where he just drove Terrence Steele back into the turf. This was tough to see.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Just terrible anchor.
Oh, no,
and he got away with a hold too. He held. Now it should have been a holding call on Terrence Steele here when he pulls him to the ground with that left hand. And he got lucky. He almost made a bad play worse.
Yeah. And that was not Elijah Garcia on that one. I was thinking of the sack or the pressure that he gave up to
giving up sacks that people I've never heard of.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Man, this was great to see. I feel like you haven't seen this out of a Cowboys runner since Zeke's prime, probably.
Marion Barber, baby. The barbarian.
Yeah, squeak out of the mess in the interior and then be able to find room on the left side. This was awesome from Javonte.
That was always – I hated the call, second and 10.
I did too.
I think it was, and you're running it in a key situation, and Javonte Williams just made it right. You know, when you have a good running back, sometimes bad play calls become good ones. And as you see here, the blocking's not good.
Yeah, Hoffman's
like even Tyler Smith's block isn't that great. The offensive line seems kind of confused based on the post-snap movement that the Giants was doing. And the Giants just forgot how to tackle for a minute. So it was just a confluence of circumstances that allowed Javonte Williams to just, run his ass off and make this a great play.
Did Brock Hoffman touch one defender on this play?
He looked at a lot of them.
I don't think he touched
a lot of them. Got a nice little spin in there showing off his athleticism.
Which is a perfect transition into our third topic here. On this episode of the Cross Show. We appreciate everybody tuning in for this film watch. John, great work. Cooper Beebe is out 6 to 8 weeks. It is we have high ankle sprain here. It's more of a lateral ankle sprain and a bone fracture in his foot. That's why the timeline is so extended. So we're about to see a lot more of Brock Hoffman. Personally, one of my favorite players to watch on the team just because of his demeanor and mentality. But you are going to suffer in some areas, especially in the run game. I think pass, you're going to be okay. I think Brock Hoffman proved last year in his 7 games starting at right guard that he could hold up in pass protection. But the run game stuff, that's where you might have some issues. John, what do you see the biggest problem being in this instance?
Yeah, I totally agree. The run game stuff, the thing I like about Brock Hoffman is he brings a nastiness to the field, and I think the whole offensive line as a whole plays nastier when he's in the game just because of his aura, I would say, and just the way he gets. He's probably one of those guys chirping like we're going to be dirting these people every play, drive them to the ground, F these guys, oh, these guys suck, all of that type of stuff, causing fights left, right, and center. So I like it. I just feel lucky that the Cowboys have done such a good job over the last decade of finding those really good, basically swing interior offensive line, for lack of a better word, whether it was Joe Looney before this or Cooper Beebe, or not Cooper Beebe, Brock Hoffman now. So I feel good. Obviously, they got to get the snap procedure cleaned up based on the poor snap that happened with Dak. But I think over the week of practice, that'll get cleaned up pretty easily. So I'm not too worried there. And I'm not really worried about the Bears' interior defensive line too much. Same thing with the Packers. So I think that for at least these next 2 games, I feel very confident that Brock Hoffman can provide you with capable center play for sure.
Shout out to my guy Joe Hoyt at the Dallas Morning News. I think he found the play where Cooper Beebe got injured, and it sucks seeing it because it's a freak accident, shouldn't happen. You see him on the left side on this extra point, and he kind of gets tangled up with Schoonmaker and falls back, and you can see him grab for that ankle immediately. And that's tough to see. That's tough to see. You hate that. You absolutely hate that it came on a play like that. You hate that it happened at all, but on a play like that, that's super tough. Let's see. Let's dive into Jadeveon Clowney, officially signed today. 1 year, $3.5 million. Incentives could make it all the way up to $6 million. He said he thinks he can play on Sunday. He thinks he's ready to go, but it's going to be up to the coaches as far as how much he plays, snap count if he plays, all that stuff. He did call back to 2020. Granted, it was 5 years ago when he arrived in Week 1 to Tennessee, and then he played 40 snaps that week against the Broncos in Denver, up in Mile High. So that's I guess something to keep in mind with moving forward him into Week 1. The question I want to ask you, John, and we touched on it last week. I know we did. How does this help the pass rush? But also, how does this help the run game? I think this is going to be a big addition in the end of the day.
I think it helps in both departments, really. As a pass rusher, I mentioned it last week, but he had a 14.9% pass rush win rate last year, which would have been better than everybody not named Micah Parsons and Osa Odigizua for the Cowboys last year. It would be better than I think anybody on the Cowboys currently on the roster this year. I think that he's not the same athlete that he was, but he's done a much better job of expanding his pass rush repertoire to include more parry techniques. He's not just a guy who's initiating contact constantly. He's incorporated club moves, cross chops, swipes to win when the offensive linemen are trying to initiate that contact to kind of blunt his power at the point of attack. So he's done a really good job of kind of expanding that repertoire, and that's allowing him to be more successful. The one issue he has is he really struggles to corner consistently because he's just extremely inflexible in his lower half. He doesn't really drop his weight and able to really contort his body and maintain momentum as he's running that corner on and flattening to the quarterback. But just the way he rushes the quarterback, he doesn't put himself in that situation too often. So it's not that big of a deal. And then against the run, he's not the same dominant presence that he was. He was like a DeMarcus Lawrence-esque run defender for most of his career. Now he's not really at that level, but he's just one notch below in that he's extremely disciplined. He does his job extremely well. He takes on blocks. He discards blocks. If you run at him, he's going to make plays. He's just not piercing the backfield, causing that disruption, that backfield disruption as consistently as he was back. But he's definitely going to be a big improvement over Sam Williams and Dante Fowler in that department for sure.
One thing that really excited me in talking to Jadeveon Clowney today, right after he signed, is he said the biggest reason for his excitement is the strength of this defensive interior line now. He said if he has Kenny Clark and Osa Odighizuwa pushing this pocket back, it allows him to corner a lot wider, and he feels like it'll help his sack production at the end of the day.
Because he can't corner, because he definitely can't corner acutely. He has to be expanded for him to get around that corner, you know.
It's got to be wide.
He has to grease those joints and just
here's Unk coming around the
exactly. I'm a coming.
Let's dive into some of the questions in the chat, and if you have one, go ahead and throw them in, and we'll dive into it. I love the picture that Kate chose for this. Have you seen this video of the guy with the Iron Man mask at the game?
I have it, but I love
so
it.
He goes to take
Marvel aficionado. I love it.
He goes to take a sip of his beer, and the mask opens, and he sips on it, and then he pulls the can back down, and it closes the mask. I was like, oh my God, awesome. The aura is crazy. Awesome. Let's see. Yeah, we talked on this one. Steel got ran through by a guy I've never heard of. Steel folded like aluminum foil. Oh, man.
Not quite. He's not as steel in pass protection.
I like it. Cornelius good in the preseason. Yeah. I mean, I would like to see Cornelius in mop-up duty. Let me say that. I would like to see them, if it's possible, get out to a big league. Get out to a big league to where we can see Cornelius in some mop-up duty. I think that'd be nice to see. Appreciate you, Texas Trill 12. Thank you for tuning in, man. Diggs got burnt so many times. I
wouldn't call it getting burnt.
Yes, he did. I don't think it's as bad as some people might interpret. The core of this issue is the safeties. In my opinion, it's specifically Donovan Wilson. Kyrie Elam had his issues, don't get me wrong. But I think if you're looking at the Diggs problem, there was one play along the sideline where I could really tell that Diggs was getting frustrated with the communication on the back end. There was a play where Maris Leofau is one of his very few defensive snaps, and it's going to be some Maris Leofau hate on this point, unfortunately. There was a play where he was supposed to get out into outside the numbers, and he didn't get out there in time, and Diggs was covering the flats, and it made it look like Diggs was responsible for about a 10 to 15-yard reception of Malik Neighbors, when in essence that was Leofau. I mean, that's just one example. We've pointed to a lot of them throughout today, but there's some issues that he did have for sure. He got too wide on that Malik Neighbors touchdown. He doesn't have that recovery speed, at least yet, to make up for that. But I wouldn't say so many times, but he did get burnt. I'll say that. I will say that.
And like I said, I think a lot of that comes to the point that he's a guy who plays out of phase. His entire career, he gives up separation on purpose to invite targets to his side of the field. He just doesn't have that recovery speed, that extra gear to get in position to contest those passes like he used to. So I think he's kind of has to adjust his coverage style until he's able to get fully back 100%.
This is interesting. Savone Revel, he is eligible to return in week 5. I think it might be a couple more weeks than that. He's going to need a ramp up. He hasn't played in a game in over 12 months, and this is going to be his first NFL action. I worry about throwing Revel out there too soon, but I'm with you in saying that I can't wait to see what Revel can do, because he could be part of the solution. This is a fantastic question. Would playing in preseason help with understanding the scheme? I think they had so many reps in training camp. I can't really say that would have been the end-all, be-all solution, because they know what they're doing. They've trained it for the last 6 months. It could help, though. Game environments are different, and that's why you have those opportunities.
The thing is, the issues that they're having with the disguise and the pre- and post-snap looks creating miscommunications, those aren't something that you're going to show in the preseason. So I wouldn't necessarily think that that's going to iron out the issues that the Cowboys are currently having, because the schemes that the Cowboys are having issues with are stuff that you don't really run in the preseason, given, Shoddy's 7-iron approach.
Is Gilmore an option at this point? I wouldn't hate it. And I think that price is lowering every week that he's still on the street. So would not hate it. I think he could step in and start for you. But, that would be I feel like that's a long shot at this point. If they plan on signing Gilmore, they better do it quick. With the Johnson news, Chicago is in the market now. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Chicago could swing on a guy like Stephon Gilmore, no doubt. And Kelly, yeah, for sure. We'll be here every week with John getting sicko on us for sure. Why isn't Justin Simmons signed? I honestly don't have an answer for you there. I don't know enough about his situation to give you 100% clarity on that. Which defensive end will be on inactive list for Clowney coming in? Now, this is a question that Caden actually – oh, this is Caden. Hey, Gates, our guy, had his little boy Noah Gates has arrived. He has touchdown. Shout out to Caden and his wife Sarah. Congratulations to them, and really happy for them. He's asking which defensive end will be on an active list for Clowney coming in. I don't think they necessarily have to put – well, they don't have to put a defensive end on the inactive list. I think with the way – so Beebe going on IR, they could activate Trevor Keegan as their extra, body in the interior, which means they would have to find an inactive body somewhere else. So, that is part of the question for me. It better not be James Houston. If it's James Houston, we riot.
Yeah.
If you look at the snap counts, it could be James Houston.
That would be malpractice, in my opinion. Malpractice, taking that dude off the field. He's done basically as much as you can do with the snap allotment that he's been given. I think that he's someone who's earning more snaps, not someone you should take away snaps from at this juncture.
I agree. One play, Diggs was thinking the safety was coming to cover the wide receiver, and he tried to play catch-up, mainly communication issues, like you said, Nick. Yeah, communication, that's going to be the biggest thing. Schottenheimer said today, and I don't know if I believe it, Schottenheimer said today in his press conference that he doesn't feel like these issues on the back end are ones that, will last throughout the season. He thinks this is a 1-week fix. We'll see. We will see, because the Chicago Bears got 52 points put on them yesterday. I feel like this game is the first 1 to 50 on Sunday if it trends the way it did yesterday against the Giants.
Let's hope so.
All right. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. How about that, John?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clouds knows what it's going to be. Just have to finish up some things at PFF, and it's going to be high time.
Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Everybody that dropped comments in the chat, really appreciate you guys. Again, shout out to our man Caden. He just had his firstborn. Shout out to Noah. He's going to be a 2040 something draft prospect. So we'll keep an eye on him. Get the film up here shortly. But John, appreciate you, man. We got 2 Monday night games.
Before we go, Terrence motherfucking Crawford, baby. Woo! Boxed up, Canelo. Boxed up that man.
Whooped.
3 weight classes up. Who cares? Also want to shout out our freestyle U.S. wrestling team. Trent Hidley took home a gold medal today, actually.
Let's go.
92 kilo from NC State. Fantastic performance. Exceeded all of my expectations. Did not think he was going to be able to win. Did a fantastic job. Zahid Valencia from ASU, now training at Oklahoma State, also won gold 2 days ago. In the 86 kilo, we have Kyle Snyder going for gold tomorrow in the 97 kilo. Also, we got this new sumo bashos going down starting this weekend. My man, Hoshori, if you guys can see this, the sumo wrestler in the back.
I see it. He's big enough.
He's coming for the basho. Hopefully, we're gonna take that 15-0. It's gonna be fantastic, leading right into a Cowboys dub next weekend. Let's fucking go, baby.
I love the combat sports sicko moment with John. I was surprised the scorecards were as close as they were with Crawford and Canelo. I had it a little bit wider.
With Canelo, man, you never know. Those judges sometimes he's had some wonky decisions in his career. So I was just glad that Crawford did such a good job that he put it into a space where they couldn't take it away from him.
Well, John, I appreciate you, man. This is a great episode. Be sure to tune in with us every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the week. Back on Wednesday, we will dive into some of the storylines that come up through the next couple of days. And we'll get you ready for this Chicago Bears matchup going up to Soldier Field on Sunday. I am excited about it. Might even talk some Chicago pizza, maybe even get Tommy Yarish's opinion on the city of Chicago.
Hey, no joke. One of the best things that I make is a Chicago-style pizza.
I'm going to take you up on that at training camp next year.
Dude, I'm telling you, I do a real good job Chicago deep dish pizza. And I also, even better, do a Detroit-style pizza, but we ain't playing the Lions, so I can't talk about that.
Yeah, but that is coming, though. First Thursday of December.
Hey, maybe when we play the Lions, I will make a Detroit-style pizza, and I will eat it in front of everybody and make them jealous during one of the podcasts.
Say less. Well, John, I appreciate you, man. This is a great episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll see you on Wednesday for everybody watching. Thank you. This is Cross Chop. Everybody stay blessed.